Coming to you from the shores of gorgeous Lake Michigan, welcome to the National Writers Series, celebrating 15 years as a year-round book festival and the premier home of passionate readers who love inspiring conversations with award-winning authors. Tonight, we welcome New York Times bestselling author Alua Arthur. Her memoir, Briefly Perfectly Human, Making an Authentic Life by Getting Real About the End, is a deeply transformative memoir that reframes how we think about death and how it can help us lead better, more fulfilling, and authentic lives. Alua Arthur is one of America's most prominent and influential death doulas. A former attorney turned founder of Going with Grace, an end-of-life planning and training organization. She's been featured in major outlets like the New York Times, Vogue, and Disney's Limitless with Chris Hemsworth, and has inspired millions through media appearances, podcasts, and keynote talks like TEDx. Alua Arthur will be joined in conversation by Dana Black, an executive public speaking coach, seasoned storyteller, and host of an acclaimed podcast, I Swear on My Mother's Grave, where she explored the complexities of grief with humor and heart. Dana brings more than 15 years of experience as a SAG-AFTRA actor and now coaches TEDx speakers and community leaders right here in Traverse City. The National Writers Series salutes our amazing audiences, dedicated volunteers, and generous supporters for helping us raise the next generation of readers and writers through our free education programs across the region. This season of amazing authors is made possible through major support by the Green Brick Foundation, Northgard Technology Group, Golden Fowler Home Furnishings, Prout Financial, and Ward and Mary Bevins Gillette. Tonight's event is presented by Herm Triesenberg and Elizabeth Mostrom. Tonight's event is sponsored by Munson Healthcare and Michael's Place. Tonight's live streaming is exclusively underwritten by Nancy Davey. Thanks to our major media sponsor, the Traverse City Record Eagle, and our media partner, Interlochen Public Radio. For information on future events, programs, and how to support our nonprofit work, please visit nationalwriterseries.org.
Thank you, Kendall. Welcome, everyone. A big hand for all those sponsors. We wouldn't be here without those sponsors and without you sitting in the seats in this grand 19th century opera house on Main Street by the Bay. Welcome. My name is Doug Stanton. We have a really fun-filled evening tonight, filled with action-packed, entertainment-packed, filled with laughter and perhaps tears of joy, but we'll see. I'm here to briefly introduce a very special evening. We're going to honor 8 scholarship winners from our Raising Writers program and honor them on stage. Our guest of honor tonight, our author, Alua Arthur, has agreed to take part in this, and we're very grateful for her time because we're about to have them come out on stage, stand here, receive some accolades from 2 important partners, Audrey Fearberg, our education director, and Gina Thornberry of the Grand Traverse Regional Community Foundation. And it's your presence here tonight that makes this important because you are witnessing them as young authors, young storytellers, being recognized for their hard work, and then they're going to go forth in the world, and I guarantee you they're going to remember this night. They really will. How do I know that? Joe, could you show this picture? Anything look familiar there? That's me. You're right. You're pointing. That's me. I majored in nerddom. Don't worry about it. And I was a nerd, and I was a lost nerd until I found my way into that chair in that classroom at the Interlochen Arts Academy in its creative writing program. I bring this up tonight on the scholarship night because it was a scholarship from Helen Osterland in Traverse City, Michigan that allowed me to see that dream through. I'm still a nerd, I just wear a tie now. That man sitting there is Jim Harrison. He was about to write a book called Legends of the Fall and many others. He was living in Leelanau County. And he came into Interlochen probably on a grant from the Michigan Council for the Arts to do a master class at the writing program. And I am getting more attention. Look at Jim's gaze at me. It's a combination of who is this kid? Is there any hope for him? And also the way I'm holding the pencil looks like I'm poised to write down something interesting. That moment right there is the inspiration for this evening. It really is, because without Helen Osterland's gift, that scholarship, we wouldn't be doing the scholarship program tonight. And also, we wouldn't be doing what we try to do, which is bring in our authors. Leif Enger recently went to the North Ed, or the Raising Writers the Writers Studio program out there, and gave a master class. We've had George Packer come in and do that. We've had Tom Brokaw do that. We've had Lee Child do that. We've had all of our authors, if they can, come in and sit like that in that classroom and sprinkle what magic creative dust they can upon the student. And I guarantee you, I remember only about 5% of what Jim said. But it was an important moment. And how did I get from that chair to this podium? It's because of you and your support of moments like this. And I guarantee you, these students are going off to MSU, U of M, I was talking with them backstage, are going to talk about this night, and we want them to come back and read one of their novels or nonfiction books when they write one on this stage. And that, our job will be done. So, just wanted you to know a little context for the evening tonight for what you're about to see. I want to welcome now, Joe, I'm sorry, I'm supposed to give the high sign to raise the, it goes up. Glaciers form more quickly than this. Let's just take a moment and gaze upon the screen. Okay, that's enough. Listen, we've partnered with the Grand Traverse Regional Community Foundation for a long time now, an enormous resource in our community. They adjudicate our scholarship program. And I want to bring Gina Thornberry out. I also want to bring out Audrey Fearberg, who is our dynamic education director, who's running a lot of these programs that you see. Welcome to you both. Take the stage.
Hi, everyone. I'm Audrey. I'm the education director for the National Writers Series, and I'm thrilled to help present this year's scholarship awards in partnership with the Grand Traverse Regional Community Foundation. We award scholarships each year in 4 categories: poetry, journalism, nonfiction, and fiction, to high school juniors and seniors. All of our winners are published in the National Writers Series Literary Journal as well. First place winners receive $1,000 for the college of their choosing, and second place winners receive $500. And to date, $70,000 in scholarships have been awarded to young writers in Northern Michigan. The winners were carefully selected by a panel of judges, and I can personally say the work of these young writers is truly remarkable. It's my pleasure to introduce Gina Thornberry, Senior Community Impact Manager with GTRCF, who helps facilitate these scholarships.
Thanks, Audrey. The Community Foundation has partnered with the National Writers Series for its annual scholarship competition for the past 15 years, and I've had the privilege of being involved for most of those years. I'm always so impressed with the quality of writing that we receive from area students each year. The students that are here tonight were selected from over 50 applicants, and I'm so honored to be here to celebrate them.
I would like to invite all of our 2025 scholarship winners to the stage. And I'd also like to invite Alua Arthur to the stage to help us distribute these awards. All right, it's time to announce our winners. The second place winner of the Robert and Mary Bransky Poetry Scholarship is Elijah Felcher. The second place winner of the William Montgomery Fiction Scholarship is Sam Milks. The second place winner of the Leslie Lee Nonfiction Scholarship is Eliana Marshner. And finally, the second place winner of the Judith Lang Journalism Scholarship is Kira Wesley. Now it's time for our first place winners. The first place winner of the Robert and Mary Bransky Poetry Scholarship is Lola Russell. The first place winner of the William Montgomery Fiction Scholarship is Annie Stempin. The first place winner of the Leslie Lee Nonfiction Scholarship is Caitlin Pop. And the first place winner of the Judith Lang Journalism Scholarship is Tess Tarchak-Hiss. And I'm thrilled to announce that each of our first place winners will also receive a MacBook due to a generous donation from Bill Unger. We're so grateful to be able to provide our first place winners with the tech to help them continue their writing journey. All right, scholarship winners, let's gather for a group photo. Gathering, and Alua, if you'll go to them. As they huddle up for a photo, I want to remind you that you can read the work of these students on our website under the Raising Writers tab, or by following the URL in your handout. Each of these students has also been published in our literary journal, along with the incredible work of other Raising Writers students, nearly 70 students in total. I'd also love to invite you to our literary journal launch party on May 27th at the Alluvion at 4 p.m. There you can hear students read their work, purchase copies of the journal, and celebrate young writers from Northern Michigan. And lastly, thank you. You may not know this, but the profits from our ticket sales from your ticket tonight are donated back to the Raising Writers program, which makes such a difference in the lives of local students. In addition, give yourselves a hand. In addition to ticket sales, our classes are made possible by the generosity of local donors. If you feel moved to make an impact on the lives of young writers, please consider supporting our programming. All of us at the National Writers Series wish each of our scholarship winners the best as they pursue their collegiate dreams and enter an exciting new chapter of their lives. Thank you so much. Scholarship winners.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you, Alua, for being here as well. Have a seat, please. We're going to bring your guest host out here in just a moment. I want to thank you again for being here and being part of this. Your warm welcome to these students will not be forgotten. And thank you again, Alua. Now, please give a big warm welcome to Dana Black, your guest host for this evening.
Hey, human.
Hey, boo.
Hey, boo. Welcome to Michigan. This is your first time, am I right?
It is my first time in Michigan.
I learned this backstage.
It's spectacular.
Yeah.
Traverse City is quite the place to land.
You're here, baby.
Yeah.
You're here. There are so many gorgeous passages in this book, and we are going to hear some of them tonight. But I wanted to just start out by reading you one of your phrases, a very short, simple, profound phrase. Life is now. It's right here. This is it. You landed in Traverse City in the early wee hours of the morning. You landed in rain. You went to your hotel. You're in a new place. How do you, Alua, find space to get ready for a big event like this tonight? How do you feel present in this life tonight?
Beyonce helps a lot.
Cool.
Yeah, Beyonce
Great.
helps a whole lot.
Let's keep going. We've got about 55 minutes. Yeah, of just Bay, right?
She really does wonders for me.
Yeah.
Really does wonders. A shower, some time with music, a dance, thinking about the people that I'll meet this evening and what it is that we have to impart. A reminder to myself to consistently speak truth and speak my authenticity and to be my highest blessing. And then we do a little booty wiggle, kiss my partner, and then we're out the door. Put on some lipstick, and then we're out the door.
When you say your highest blessing, tell us about that.
To me, that means that I get to show up in a way that is supportive to other people. When I am in my full authenticity, when I'm firmly rooted in my body, when I'm firmly rooted in my truth, that is an invitation for everybody else also to meet me in that place. And that is my highest blessing. When I can be exactly who I am, I think it makes space for other people to also be who they are, which ultimately is the thing that gets us a little closer to our end, by allowing us to just be who we are for the time that we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Blessing.
That's correct.
Yeah, it's a blessing.
And we were talking about it backstage that I heard you say when you were writing this, right? That scary feeling of, I'm writing it for me. I'm writing my authenticity for me, my blessing. I don't know who's going to read this, what they're going to think, how they're going to perceive this. And so that leads me to ask the question, will you tell us, the room, what Briefly Perfectly Human is about and who is it for?
Sure. This book was people always say it was a labor of love. It was a labor of necessity. It just needed to be written. At some point in the early pandemic, in the Tiger King days, in the hoarding toilet paper days.
Yeah, the Tiger King days.
Yeah, when Disneyland was shut down days. In those days, I, along with many people, were feeling really isolated, and it felt like it just really needed to come out. Like the stories needed to come out. Everybody was feeling really isolated, I think, from each other. And I noticed that the things that my friends were sharing, plus I was really busy at the time because a lot of people were dying and people were thinking about dying. And I happen to talk a lot about death and dying. And so I was called on a lot during that time. I noticed that the things that people wanted and needed were similar to each other, and yet people weren't really talking about it to one another. And I also couldn't see clients the way that I had before. And the easiest way to have that feeling again, to touch them again, was by sharing story. And by doing that, I started noticing how parts of my story were also interwoven with it. And so it came out that way, that I'd have an idea about a principle or something that I was working through and noticed a similarity in a client story and noticed a similarity in the story of somebody that I'd been talking to that day on Zoom. And so I started to really get it out. The book, my hope at least for the book, was to share as much of my story and of the clients that I saw and share like the human elements, the parts that were so similar for everybody, even though sharing parts of myself gave me bubble guts. Like I was so nervous for anybody.
Bubble guts?
Bubble guts.
Guts, got it.
That feeling where it's just like, go. That feeling. But writing it in quiet writing retreats, like I was in the mountains for part of it. I was in Topanga Canyon. I was in the desert. I was often alone in a room, click, clack, clacking and crying and just getting the words out. I didn't think about the people that were going to be reading it. I wrote it because I needed it for myself. I dedicated the book to the too much and to the not enough, to the aching dreamers, the perpetual seekers. Yeah. Nothing to be
Say
found.
that again.
To the too much, to the not enough, to the wanderers, to the aching dreamers, and the perpetual seekers of nothing to be found.
I know, it's like, when do you cry? Like now, or do I wait? I'm just going to cry this whole time. It's just stunning. It's funny, not funny, but it's amazing that you said that, because I told you backstage and we were talking earlier, but I read that book. It was your story, but I kept being like, me. I see myself in that. I get that. I hear that. And so it was a ride of it was your memoir and this journey of teaching us how to maybe be a death doula, right? It's a training manual and a memoir. And I kept seeing myself in that story. And it's just profound that you wrote for all of us, but for you. And you say a few times, go ahead.
Congratulations, you're human.
Thank you. Yeah, my bubble guts were going. But you say in this book so many times that how we live is how we die. And I wanted you to talk about your first brush with death when you were 3 years old, living in Ghana, and that difficult journey to leave your birth country.
Yeah. When I was 3, my father was a member of parliament in Ghana. He was the head of the Committee for Presidential Affairs, and he represented the Nzima region, which is in the far west coast of Ghana. And the government was overthrown in a military coup. And we lived in government ministers' housing. So all the members of parliament, not all of them, but a lot of the ministers lived in these high-rise buildings. That meant that when the coup occurred, the soldiers, the opposition, knew exactly where to go to round up all the folks. I was 3. My older sister was 4. My younger sister was 1. It's her birthday today, by the way.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You tried to FaceTime her
I
earlier.
did try to FaceTime her. It didn't work. I wanted her to see all my beauty. She didn't pick up the phone. But we all fled. We ran out of the house, barely dressed. My mom had on pajamas, and we scurried down the back stairway because the elevator was full. People were trying to gather up their key belongings to get out of there before the soldiers came. And the soldiers came. We got out of there just in the nick of time. Many of my dad's friends and compadres were thrown in prison immediately, and quite a few people were killed that day. But we fled, and we were safe. My father eventually decided to turn himself in because trying to hide was not working. He was a prominent figure in the government at that point. And it was the first time, even though I was not consciously aware of it, my earliest memories are from that moment. I remember the feeling of panic, and yet as we were running down the back stairway, I was holding my father's hand. My dad's hand is normally very cool and velvety feeling, but that day it was hot, and he picked me up because I couldn't run fast enough. And I remember looking out of the glass blocks, kind of, and seeing people trying to put everything together. There was just chaos happening. And yet, through it all, I felt really safe. Those are my earliest memories. And now I understand that the fear of death was the thing that was so present that morning. But through it all, I felt safe. I felt cared for.
And you eventually ended up in the States. And tell us a little bit about the journey. We went to Colorado Springs.
Yes,
right? Yes.
We traveled around a bit because my father found Jesus when he was in prison, and my mother found Jesus also separately from him. But I think something about being a single mom with 3 young kids and pregnant again, because after my father got out of prison, yuck. But something
different
happened.
book. That's
a different book.
That's a different book.
No, thank you.
No.
I'm good. So my mother was pregnant again, and we left while my dad was trying to get his passport and get papers in order to join us. But we came to the States as political refugees and asylees, and then traveled around a bunch, spreading Jesus, because my father now was a preacher, my mom was a preacher, and traveled around the world, and then ended up in Colorado Springs when I was 11. Colorado Springs, Colorado.
Yeah.
It was a trip.
Yeah. What does that mean to you when you say that?
It was such a far cry from everything I'd known. I mean, we'd been in Europe, we'd been in Kenya, we'd been back to Ghana, we'd been to so many places around the world, we'd been on all these stages, we'd met people from all over the world, and now all of a sudden I was in this small town. I mean, bigger than Traverse City, but a small town to me at the time, given that I'd been in these major metropolises, and living there, Black, African, in a very, very white community, very conservative, very homogenous, and I was a little different. Yeah, a lot of different, in fact. So it was a trip. It was a wild ride at 11.
Yeah, do you remember the first time you had to talk about what happened to you at 3? This journey to leave your birthplace, like when that came up for you, or?
We didn't talk about it much at that time, or at least publicly.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very much a story in our family, and then my father would often tell the story on stage because it was part of his testimony and how he came to find Jesus. So we didn't talk about it too much, but in school, it would come up all the time that we were African, and in the yearbook that year, there's a column that is called Out of Africa. And it's my sister and I. In retrospect, it was just terrible. Awful. But it's my sister and I being profiled about being African.
Right.
Yeah, because it was so exotic.
Yeah. When did you go back? How old were you when you returned?
I didn't return until I was 19. I went for a semester abroad when I was in college, and I was the first one of my family members to go back.
What did it feel like?
Felt like home, but I was an outsider. I was a foreigner. It was sad.
Because you're coming from the States.
Coming from the States, I walked differently. I carried myself differently.
Yeah.
My hair was really short, which is not that unfamiliar there. But, I wore pants and a lot of linen, and I'm dressed dripping in jewelry, which is something that is not much a Ghanaian woman my age would have done.
Yeah. Do you consider leaving Ghana? Is that grief to you?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How would you describe it for you today?
I believe that there's grief in leaving our homelands. I think there's grief in growing up in a place that, you don't feel absolutely comfortable in.
Yeah.
There's a grief in that identity, the part of myself I will never know, the part of myself that could have been. I think that's a particular type of grief, the type of lives that we thought that we should have led, that we don't lead. There's grief in that as well.
Yeah. There's a lot of loss in this book. You know, there's love and loss. There's some career loss. As a, you know, you say you're a recovering attorney. You jumped into a world, you were a former attorney with the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles. You were working in social justice and activism. So what did you learn about yourself in that work?
Gosh, I learned that I'm a terrible lawyer. For starters, I am no good at the details and the paperwork. Okay? It's not my strong suit. I learned that I'm very, very good at talking to my fellow human and identifying suffering. And when I see somebody suffering, I will do what I can to help them resolve it. I learned that very powerful thing about
Tell us the time when that happened to you.
I'd sit with a client and they'd be telling me their story, and I'd understand that I had to just get the material facts in order to write an affidavit of support for a domestic violence restraining order, for example. And yet I'd want to know the household that they grew up in and whether or not they saw violence in that household, and ideas about their self-worth or any trauma that they'd experienced otherwise. None of those make a difference in a 3-paragraph affidavit. We need the facts about what happened.
Black and white, like literally, like there's no gray, right? Yeah.
And I live in very vibrant color.
Yeah.
I wanted to paint a full picture of my client's history so that we could understand what happened and how we got here, but the court wasn't necessarily interested in that.
And you felt you were searching for something inside that work, but it felt, you say, like you're trying to stick something in a peg, that doesn't fit, right?
A hexagon-shaped
peg.
Yeah, and a square hole.
Right. So you did that work for about 9 years, I believe?
Yeah,
is that right?
I worked there for about 9 years, doing my best to bring justice to these folks that had no place else to turn, because we were working with the lowest income folks, people that had no other resources, often immigrants who had children who needed some support to get out.
Yeah. The risk of loving someone, which is something you say in the book, is losing them. And you experienced a very profound loss due to the death of your brother-in-law, Peter St. John, and to lymphoma. And what did caring for him and losing him and loving him teach you about yourself, and then ultimately how it led you to becoming one of the steps in becoming a death doula?
Peter's death, while still painful to think about, was transformative. Getting to care for somebody who I loved in my lifetime was one of the greatest gifts that I've been given. To be in service in that way, called to the parts of myself that were present at Legal Aid, certainly, but that were on fire at that point. I found myself on purpose in a way that I hadn't been before. I could identify the needs. I could identify the things that people needed, even though they hadn't been spoken. I would ask questions that seemed to be useful. I was collecting evidence and ideas about what would really help the situation, and then trying to apply that to, the things that needed to be done. I was also in a space of compassion, in a space that I inhabit very naturally, but it allowed it to shine. I want to say I really discovered parts of myself during that time. I also found my anger.
Yeah. What did that feel like?
It felt like wanting to burn the whole system down. I still have it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, anger is something that I think a lot of people, I'm going to be gendered here, but a lot of female identified folks perhaps aren't allowed so much, where people can I understand when we get sad, but angry is something that we should put away. And, as a Black woman also in America, the angry Black woman is absolutely a trope and a stereotype. And so my anger is something that I put aside for a long time. When Peter was dying in the medical care system, I got really pissed because I saw how broken the system was. I wanted everybody to do better for him. I wanted them to do better for us. And the support that we needed wasn't present. And that anger is a thing that ultimately fueled me into creating Going with Grace, the end-of-life business that I run. But I think elements of that anger have fueled me all the way to sitting on this stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still pissed.
Yeah. Good. We need it. We need it. We need it. When you think about him today, like, yeah, you're angry. But if we go back to Peter.
Yeah.
If we think about Peter today, what do you feel thinking about him today?
I feel gratitude.
Yeah.
I wish he were still alive.
Yeah.
I think he'd be so tickled with the fact that I've made something of myself.
And look at you.
He'd be like, girl, really?
You're flying around the world. Yeah.
Peter was used to me flying everywhere, but often aimlessly. You know, I was
true.
traveling
Right,
and
just
I don't know
traveling.
what I was looking for, but I was
Right.
looking, perpetual seeker of nothing to be found.
Right.
I was just looking. And now there is direction to my actions. There's purpose to my being. And I don't mean it in the way that people often think, like life purpose way, like I found my work, which is my life's purpose, but rather in the way that I am far more deeply like steeped in my life and in my body in a way that I wasn't then. I think Peter would be really tickled by that. I think he'd be proud.
Yes.
I think he'd also be really proud of the choice that I made in a partner. I think that he would, gosh, I wish that he could have seen it. You know, that still hurts a little bit. I wish he could see my niece as old as she is. I wish he could see what my sister's become. I wish he could see it all. And there's a part of me that understands that his death unlocked something for all of us that needed to be born. In that way, sometimes death creates opportunity in our lives. And still, I think I'd give it all back to have another few years with him.
Yeah. It's like that trope, right? Or like, you're not saying, yeah, everything happens for a reason. We're never saying that.
No.
We don't say that.
No.
And then this gift, this like what you've created out of it is just stunning. And reading about him, and it was beautiful how you wrote about him. He has a whole chapter called Peter. So, a lot of people are here tonight, right, to learn about death work, potentially, becoming a doula. What is a doula? So, let's just get it out. What is a death doula?
Thank you for asking.
You're welcome. And what do they do, my friend? Tell the room, tell all of us.
Sure. Okay. A death doula is a non-medical and holistic care and support person for the dying person and their circle of support through the process. And no matter what those needs are, we help them meet. Sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it's practical, sometimes it's logistical or spiritual. No matter what the needs are, nearing the dying time, the doulas can support with. When I say the dying person, however, I also mean anybody who's come into recognition of their mortality. That means anybody who will one day die.
Which is all of us.
Hello.
That
means anybody.
We could take this on the road.
We should. We're on the road now.
We're on the road now.
Anybody who has some awareness of their mortality. So when people are healthy, death doulas can support them in creating comprehensive end-of-life plans, working through their fears of death, doing death meditations, helping them.
That's one of the most beautiful chapters. You take somebody through a death meditation.
A good time.
It's stunning.
Yeah, I mean, it's like my kind of fun. I don't know if it's yours, but
right.
Okay. It's a good time to think about renewed engagement with life as a result of experience or imagining the body dying.
Yeah.
When people know what they're dying of, we can support them in creating the most ideal death for themselves under the circumstances. And then after a death occurs, we can help family members wrap up affairs of their loved one's life. If you, and I know you have been through this yourself, you understand the myriad of duties and bureaucracy there is to deal with after a death.
And I'm an only child.
Honey,
so it's like,
you had extra.
Look out.
You had it all.
Yeah.
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 Doulas can help.
Yeah. I wish you were around. My husband, he did a lot of, I love you. Yes, there's so much. I learned so much reading it because I was like, oh, I didn't know they did that. And I didn't know, and you even advocating saying that might be outside my purview of what I know, or is that what you're looking for? Like really making sure you're clear on what they need, right? Because the family needs different things than sometimes the individual, right? And
Absolutely. Yeah. We're a support person for the entire thing.
Yeah.
And so sometimes we're hired by the person who's dying, sometimes by their circle of support.
Yeah.
And it depends on what the needs are, because the needs are varied. You know, everybody comes to their dying in a very unique and specific way. And somebody might not need rituals for the deathbed. Somebody might need somebody to go through the mail and collect all the valuable pieces of information that are in the person who's going to die's head. Because when they die, all the information goes with them, and we got to get it out before the death occurs.
Yeah. So in this book, you say that death work is a perilous metaphysical high wire act, and it will take you to places inside yourself you might not be ready to visit. Can we visit some of them now? Are you ready? Let's go. No. What are some of those places that you really had to reckon with inside yourself when you started doing this work?
My mortality is the biggest one.
You're going to die too?
Yeah, boo, me too.
Yeah.
And I can learn to work with my fears or my concerns around my dying. That's one of the most useful elements of getting to do this work all the time, is the longer I'm around people that are dying, the more often I'm thinking about it, the more I see how people approach it, and it's information for me. You know, we learn so much from everybody who dies before us. Like, why not use that in some way? So confronting my fear of death is one thing. Being with my fear of dying is a really, really important thing that has come up for me. But so many other things, like the places where I am not willing to be vulnerable, or places where I still want to hold on to control and where I refuse to surrender. All of those things come up when you're in the presence of dying.
That's real. Tell us about the practice that you offer clients that's called finding your feet.
Yes, this is a useful one, I believe.
Tell us how we can do it.
Yeah, well, this practice is often useful when people are in deep anxiety, either death anxiety or, they're in the future about the thing that might happen, or somebody's experiencing anticipatory grief, which is the grief that occurs before the death actually happens. It's important when any of those things are happening that we ground ourselves in the now, in the here. And that process looks like literally finding your feet. Like, where are my feet at this moment? What do they feel like? How do they feel inside my shoe, in my sock? How they feel against the ground? The mind can wander. The mind will travel. It will go a week in the future, 5 weeks in the future. It'll go to third grade, to what that one person said to me. It will go all over the place, but the body is always only right here. And when I can bring my attention, my awareness to right here, then it grounds me in what's happening here, as opposed to my fear about the future or my worry about the past.
Yeah. I feel like I wonder how it would feel in the earth, soil, right?
It feels so good.
Different than carpet, right? Finding my feet inside the earth itself.
Yeah, or a foot bath. You know, that's a literal practice, is just putting our feet in the foot bath, because then there's warm water and there's, maybe Epsom salt crystals or rose petals or the fragrance. To engage the senses also helps us to ground in the present moment.
Yeah. So speaking of feet.
What? Where's this going?
It's about to Can you talk to us about putting yourself in the shoes of someone who is grieving or dying, and how we can't fix them? And that's so hard, right? That we feel so, if we're talking about control, right? We feel really helpless. So can you tell us how to do that?
Well, I actually suggest that we don't.
Yeah.
I suggest that we don't. We don't put ourselves in the shoes of somebody who's dying.
Yeah.
No matter how often I am close to people that are dying, or I imagine what my death could be like, I could do 1,000 death meditations. I do not have the lived experience of somebody who knows that their life is soon ending. I don't know what it's like. I can be around it a million times. I could have a serious illness myself. I won't know until I'm there for myself. So my suggestion, rather than putting ourselves in their shoes, is to acknowledge that I don't know what that experience is like, but be there in the trenches with them. It creates space for curiosity. It creates space for them to have their own experience rather than what I think it could be. It means that I don't fill the space between you and I with my ideas, and rather I let it be what it will be. I think it's far more useful to bear witness to, rather than to try to say, I already know what you're going through. I don't. It serves almost like a weapon that way. That's why many people that come to our training course or want to learn how to be death doulas, they come and they say, I'm so empathetic, or I'm an empath, or I know what other people are feeling. I always ask if they can put it down for just a little bit of time. Pretend that they don't. and give the other person an opportunity to be and feel exactly how they're feeling, as opposed to how I think they will be feeling.
Which you say is
they should be feeling.
Compassion versus empathy.
Yeah.
It's hard. Sometimes that's hard to know the difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Well. Yeah.
I also just want to add that thing within us that makes us want to fix, I think it often comes from feeling uncomfortable in the pain of another, and sometimes not even trusting the other to be able to handle their own emotional needs. When I want to fix somebody, I say, I know better than you about what you might want or need. And I also am not trusting you and your experience. But in order to just be present with somebody, which is what a doula does, is we're with them in their presence, that we let them be in their experience. And I'm there when you need me, but I ain't got anything to fix you. There's no fixing the pain of death or grief or loss.
No. Can you talk about a really difficult moment, maybe early on in your career as a doula, or even recently, where you felt, I don't know if I can do this work?
Yes. Well, my doula work has shifted a little bit in recent years because I'm not sitting with clients as much anymore. I now mostly teach and travel and speak, etc. But I still do sit on airplanes, and in that like awkward time when you sit down next to somebody and they say, well, what do you do?
No, that's me. That's actually me. I do that.
God.
I am that person. I'm like, hey, I'm nervous, so I want to talk.
Do you want to talk?
Yeah, sometimes I do that.
Yeah, well, those people shut up real quick when they sit next to me. They're done. You do what?
You do what now?
Okay, thanks.
Do you keep it short? Like, do you keep it short? Like, what do you?
No. I mean, there's that moment where I say, am I just going to tell them I'm a nail tech, or am I going to tell them the truth?
Yeah.
And I often I choose the truth because I don't think I could keep it up if they asked me if I told them I was a nail tech. So I tell the truth, and I get one of three responses. Either people are like, I wish that you were there when my mother, brother, sister, father, somebody was dying, or they ask me a lot about the afterlife. They think I know, and so they want to know what I think, or we toss ideas back and forth, which is really juicy. Or sometimes they just say, okay, great. And then they pay attention and look at me out of the corner of their eye for the rest of the flight to make sure I'm not doing anything inappropriate. And so I hear a lot of things that way, just casually when talking to somebody. And some of those are difficult moments because we're in line at, a Duane Reade or a CVS, and somebody's just told me the whole story about when their grandfather died and the guilt that they carry. And I'm doing doula work with them, but then we've got to go. But one experience that I wrote about was a client, I don't know how many years back to me, time is very strange, but where she was a pretty well-known figure in Los Angeles, and she, in our prep prior to her dying time, shared with me that she only wanted 6 people there when she died. And yet word got out that she was entering into the active dying phase, and people flooded her house, including these best friends of hers. But I spent my time there serving like a bodyguard almost, literally guarding her body so that her friends could be present with her. But every time I'd move or make space, somebody new would rush in and throw themselves on her body and weep all over her, and then, trying to honor their grief. So I'd give them a moment before moving them away. And as soon as I moved, somebody new would come. And it was really tough. It was about 8 hours of just trying to hold the grief of all the folks while also holding the intention, holding her request and her dying as well. That really tried me. I thought I wasn't cut out for the work after that.
Did you feel, though, too, was there a feeling of I failed her by this getting out, or this concept of I didn't protect her the way I wanted to protect her too, even though you're trying?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I felt that I'd failed her. She'd asked for intimacy. She'd asked for a quiet dying time, and that's not what she got. Yeah. And yet I also have to remember that it's not about me. I'd made it about myself. Like, I failed her. I'm just such a bad doula. No, I did the best that I could.
Yeah.
And I make light of it now, but it was a rough, 3 weeks. I felt awful. I felt awful. Yet my students at the time reflected back to me how sometimes, we can do the best that we'll do, and we hold the intention, and the client will have the death ultimately that they will have, and that's entirely out of my control.
Right. Yeah. But releasing control is something you're, like we said,
still struggling with it.
Still working on. Yeah. And that relates to something you say in the book, which is to serve as a death doula is to provide a ring in the circle of support, which radiates outward like the rings in a tree trunk. And I was wondering, how do you find, since the rings radiate, right? How do you find support, self-care? What's your ring? Yeah. What do you do? I mean, it sounds like you go to your students, you go to loved ones, but how do you hold space and,
Well, to serve as a doula is to serve as a member of the community care. Doula care is kin care, and kin care is community care. That means that there's my community that supports me. So the rings go outward to me, but they also go out past me. Yeah. I lead in the training courses about the phrase from Roshi Joan Halifax, which is strong back, soft front, which means that people are resting on my soft front and I have a strong back for them. But behind me are folks with a soft front and a strong back that I can rely on as well. So I lean heavily on my community. I cry a lot. I'm a big fan of tears. I eat a lot of salty, crunchy things. I love a potato chip. Those are some of my friends.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. Salt and vinegar, my two besties.
And sugar right now.
And
we got
sugar.
a little sugar.
We love a little sugar. But I talk to people. I talk about my fears. I talk about the challenges. I talk about my perceived inadequacies in the work as well. But I must stay honest with myself about the work consistently.
Yeah. So a lot of people talk to you about their fear of dying, but they are not afraid of death itself. Tell us why.
Well, I think people think that they fear death. Some people do. But often what I hear is that people fear the process of dying, that they are afraid of what will happen. They're afraid of the timing of it. They don't like not knowing when their death will come. They don't like knowing what the circumstances will be. They fear pain. People fear pain a lot, understandable, but pain can be well controlled if you're in hospice. So people feel pain, they fear the body, they fear what will happen with the body. Yet when people are often thinking about death, I mean, for some, the fear of annihilation is present, but others say, well, shoot, I'm not going to be there anymore, so maybe there's nothing necessarily to fear. Yeah. But it depends. The fears of death fall in about 4 major categories, and one of them is the process of the body. Another is the unknown, or what, if anything, happens after death. And so that's maybe the folks that fear death. For some, it's the fear of missing out after we die, good old-fashioned FOMO. Yeah, life is going to continue on in my absence, and the kids will grow and I won't be there. What's going to happen with scratch and sniff cell phones? Is AI going to kill us all? We don't know any of these things. And people are worried about not being around for it. And then also the fear of a life not fully lived. That's one of the greatest fears of death. That sounds a lot like I can't die yet because I still want to ... with my life. Most of them are in that category.
Yeah. I had a complicated relationship with my mom before she died, and she was dealing with addiction and depression and some neuropathy. And she died, and I still had a lot of anger and a lot of resentment and a lot of anger at myself, and I had a lot of guilt. I still do. And I know you talk in the book about compassion, but we don't have to forgive, but we have, talk to us about losing someone when we have unresolved pain. Hit it.
That's a tough one.
How do we hold space? Yeah.
Well, we have to hold space for ourselves. We have to be okay with the choices that we've made. We also have to be okay with the choices that they made.
We have to be?
Well, I think we have to accept the choices that they've made. That's hard.
Yeah.
But often I think we have to be okay with the impact on us ultimately, because we can't change it, we can't fix it, particularly as they are dying or after the death. That's it. Now, what we can do is work with it afterward. There's practices that I suggest people do if they still have things that they need to say, or there are still aching places to work on those things, writing a letter to the dead person to say all the vile things that you wanted to say to them while they were living, or the impact that they had on you, and just to get it out. All out and burn it, stomp on it, bury it, whatever it is that you must do, hit it, whatever you must do with that piece of paper to do. But when we are thinking about when people are still living and they're maybe approaching their dying and we have a complicated relationship, the impetus or some ideas about death say that we must run out and forgive them. We run to their deathbed and we forgive, and I'm so sorry, and I forgive you, even though we don't mean it. Now, why? I don't see any reason why we should pretend to forgive or forgive something that we don't actually feel forgiveness around.
Or like, who's it for, right? Then
it's entirely performative. And who are we performing for? We're performing for death.
Yeah.
And death don't care at all. So my invitation is rather to forgive ourselves, forgive maybe the version of the person who didn't know the pain, who maybe had it inflicted upon them. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't think it's necessary that we forgive the other person. I think that if it does not serve to put it down, don't put it down. I think it's contrary to a lot of the conversations around death. Where it says, forgive, forgive, forgive. I say, forgive yourself if you must, but don't force yourself into it.
Okay.
Okay.
Let me take that. Yeah. I want you to help us talk to our children about death.
Oh, good.
Oh, fun.
Yes, so fun.
You say in your book, when we avoid children's questions about death, we inadvertently communicate that they should shove their scary thoughts right down, reinforcing a death-phobic culture.
Yes.
So how do we do it?
I had a client, just an example. Actually, it wasn't a client. It was somebody that I'd met either on a plane or at a party or someplace very casually, where we were talking about death and dying. And he shared with me that after his grandma died, he had a hard time sleeping. He said he couldn't sleep for years. He was 7 or so when she died, because his parents told him that grandma had gone to sleep.
Yeah.
And he knew grandma went to sleep and she never came back. And so he was terrified that if he slept, he also wouldn't come back. That's an example of the way that we forward our death phobia into the next generation without even being aware of it. Ooh. These euphemisms,
Say 'em.
Oh, so many of them. Dirt nap. Dirt nap? You've never heard this one? Dirt nap.
Bubble guts, dirt nap. No. I haven't.
Dirt nap.
But gone to sleep for sure.
Gone to sleep. In a better place.
In a better place. No.
In heaven, when maybe some people don't have any evidence of one.
Right.
There's so many different things that we say that are hard. When my niece, she was 4 and her father was dying, and she asked me whether or not his ears were going to be really big after he died. I did not understand why she was asking me this question, but I kept asking, and I learned that people had been telling her that he was still going to be able to hear her wherever he was. And so to a 4-year-old, well, his ears must get really big then. Yeah, and so for a while, her conception of death was everybody with really big ears walking around someplace where we can't see them. Yeah, and so we end up passing these ideas on, and at some point she had to undo that. I mean, you should have seen her face as I tried to explain to her, no, his ears are going to be the same size, I mean, if he has any at all. But it was a tough conversation. It was a tough conversation. But kids know a lot more than we think that they do. Mm-hmm. Kids know how to grieve. Wise. Yeah, they're wise. And they're seeing it all the time. I mean, they understand. They see it. Bambi.
Dumbo.
Moana.
That's it. That's all I know.
There's so many of them.
Not a big Disney, right? But it's right. It's in all those.
It happens.
Lion King.
The Lion King. He pushed him off the mountaintop. There's so much death that's occurring.
Yeah. So what do we? How do? So we just we to a. Is there a threshold of age? Right. I'm wondering. Right.
It's hard
when
to
we
say.
start.
I think it's child specific. Around 4, but our understanding is that children start, they're able to conceptualize object impermanence, that something goes away and doesn't come back. And so kids often start asking a lot of questions about death, or about people leaving and not coming back, or things disappearing and not coming back around that time, generally around 4. Obviously, kids do their own thing on their own timeline, right? Yeah, so around 4 is when those questions start. I think it's important that we tell the children the truth. I think we tell them the truth while also holding some safety for them. So the question my niece asks all the time is, well, are you going to die too? The answer obviously is yes. But by saying, yeah, and I don't know when, would not have served her. So rather, I say, I don't plan to for a really long time. It's the truth. It's my truth. Create safety, and also doesn't say, no, honey, that's not fair to her. Yeah. We got to tell them
I don't plan to for a very long time.
I don't plan to for a really long time. It's true.
So kind of along those same lines, I think this question feels right to talk about, if we're going to be real and honest, when someone's facing in our life a fatal illness, how do we hold hope while being really real?
Oh, gosh. I got so much to say about hope.
Because we want them to know that, right, that there's possibility. We could get through this, maybe.
Yeah.
But we want to be realistic, right?
Yeah, we want to be realistic.
Yeah.
Hope is not at odds with planning for the end of life. You can hold both of those things.
Hope is not at odds with planning for the end of life.
No, you will one day die. It might not be of this thing, but one day. So may as well have the conversations about it. In the context of caring for people at the end of life, it's important to identify what it is that we hope for. You know, we cannot hope to not die. That's not true for any of us. But I can hope to live long enough to get married and, you know, grow elderly with my partner. I can hope for that. You know what I mean? Yeah. I can think of a client where she really hoped to live long enough to dance at her grandson's wedding. That we can hope for. But to hope to be cured of an illness when science and bodies tell us this body is declining, rapidly deteriorating, the cancer is growing much faster than the doctors can contain it, the medicine isn't working like we expected it to. We must get real, but also hang on to some hope for the little things that we can have. You know, hope to see somebody another time, hope to taste this thing one more time, hope to watch the sun come up again.
And has anybody in your life been, when you've tried to have hope, they're like, say it, say that, give me what you're really seeing, you know, like, do they get angry? Is there a pushback sometimes of don't BS me, right? This feeling, yeah.
I've seen it happen in the circle of support of the family members of the dying person, but in my experience, the dying people often know what's happening. Maybe they keep up the facade for the people in their lives, but in quiet moments, people seem to know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's maybe harder to admit to the people in their lives that love them and desperately want them to be here. And yet they often know. In my experience.
Yeah. So can we talk a little bit about being Black in this work and this white, potentially white business, right, at times?
Who's Black?
Ooh. So in the book, you're like, you do say this beautiful quote about my desire to cure societal ills, like your background in law, often fuels your actions. Your entry into death work was no different. You say, for me, death work is activism at its core, fueled by anger, but cloaked in love. I came to death work because I want to help fix the system I saw, which you talked about. So what is the relation between coming to terms with death and sort of understanding racism and identity at the end of life? I know this is a big question. Yeah, I know. We can go back to Lion King if you want, but yeah, it's a big one. But you talk so beautifully about this in the book that I wanted to give you some space to talk about it.
Death work to me is activist at its core because, well, multiple prongs, but to begin with, being able to allow somebody to be exactly who they are and honor their entire humanity, despite the things that I may have learned about them or think about them or assume about them, allowing a human to be exactly who they are, what they believe, all those things, just letting them be human is a radical fucking act. It is.
Yeah. Yes.
It is.
Yes.
It is. Because in this modern society, we do so much to try to be somebody else or to show up in another way or to perform for other people. We don't get a lot of messages that it's okay to be sensitive or queer or short or even to age. But to allow somebody just to be, that includes being Black. Throughout humanity, I'll say, at least when we discovered that people appear differently, there has been an idea that Black people were not as worthy as white people. Our humanity has been stripped time and again throughout history. Even in this United States, there was a time where we were counted as 3/5 of a human, not a whole. After George Floyd was murdered, there were so many times where people could not understand, white people could not understand why Black people who did not know this man were grieving the way that they were. To me, it's because if you cannot see that I can see myself in this other human, you are not allowing me my fullest humanity. You are not seeing that I, as a human, can hold compassion for somebody that I don't know because he looks like me. You're not allowing me to be the fullest to who I am. You're not allowing me to grieve. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It comes up so often. Also, being a Black death doula in America means having to show up consistently for white folks or other people where throughout history, white people are the ones that have inflicted the greatest amount of damage on Black folks in history. And yet, I still fix my face and walk into this space and can honor somebody's entire lived experience, their whole white life, for what it was, despite how much whiteness has been dangerous to me in my lifetime.
And even and even stories of people who literally are racist, which is a story in the book.
Literally,
the family took you through the back. There's a moment where you say, no, I'm going in the front door.
Yeah. So often. It's happened too many times.
Yeah.
I also want to add that in order to show up consistently to support people when they're dying, I must honor their whole lived experience as well, right? Mm-hmm. And for anybody, I show up there, I'm honoring their identity, I'm honoring who they loved, how they spent their money, even if I don't agree with it. And in order to do that in their dying, I have to see them as a whole human and allow them to be. If I can do that while somebody's dying, I should be able to do it also while they're living. If I can do it while they're living, I can't uphold any of the systems that keep us disconnected from one another. If I can honor who they were in totality as they are dying, then I can do it while they're living. If I can do it while they're living, then I cannot deny them any part of their humanity. That means I can't hold transphobia, I can't hold homophobia, I can't hold racism, I can't drop bombs on people. I can't, because I must see them as a whole human. That's how I see death work, as being one of the pathways through breaking down all the systems. When I see a human, somebody who is dying.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it's also incredibly helpful when I'm at the grocery store and the cashier is having a hard time, because I look at them and I might feel real frustrated, but when I look and I say, golly, this person one day will die. This person has doubt and anxiety and insecurity and fear and all these things that I don't know about. Now, if I can put them on their deathbed and I can think about all the loving compassion I send their way when they're dying, I can do it while they're standing there pissing me off. That's the way that compassion works. And that's the way that we can send to people while they're living.
Yes.
All people, then we can't continue to walk by our brothers and sisters that are hungry on the ground. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I'm so glad you're not a lawyer anymore.
It didn't work there.
I do. And it was beautiful how you talked about people on the fringe of society, right? Like you talked about some queer or non-binary people coming to this work, right? And looking for community and their own identity being witnessed, coming to the doula work, right? With Going with Grace. Oh, the clock. I know. I wanted to ask you real briefly about, you were raised an evangelical Christian.
Yeah.
But you say now that you're not a praying gal.
Right.
What does your spirituality look like now?
Yeah. Well, my parents are disappointed.
Yeah. They're not happy?
No. Let's see. I think they're very proud of the person I've become. I think they are grateful that I tell my truth and I hold my boundaries and I'm loving and I'm kind. And I think they think I'm smart too, which is nice. Because I do want to make them proud. And yet I think that they wish that I still held on to the same tenets and beliefs that I was raised with. I put those down quite some time ago. In fact, I fought them about it a lot when I was 16. I was such a pain in their butt. But we've gotten to a place now of acceptance. My dad still asks me if I go to church all the time. And the answer is yes, but it's not the way he thinks.
Laughter is church.
Laughter is church. Sex is worship.
Ooh. Louder and into the mic.
It's true. It's true. I find God in a fellow human.
Yeah.
And in the trees and in the butterflies. And like, have you ever stopped to look at a caterpillar? Like they're fast. This whole experience is wild.
Yeah.
How can I not be in absolute awe? You know? And I think that they like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're okay with that.
Yeah, they should be. They should be. I was going to show you, I was wearing this is a ring of my mom's who passed away. This is my grandma's scarf. I wore them as talismans tonight because I know you love jewelry. And I wanted you to talk about, if you wanted to, your piece that you said was a little ancestral, if you will, one of your rings. But share what you want to share.
I will. Where do we start? I'm wearing this little angel wing here to represent a little being that never made it to Earth. And I hold them with me always.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
So I wanted you to tell us something before I have you read a little bit of your beautiful epilogue. I wish we could read the whole thing. It is stunning, and I know that you love it as well. So I love that we loved it over here at NWS. But I want you to tell us one thing that we can all do when we leave here tonight. We go home or we go to sidetracks. Maybe somebody's going. How?
Is that a strip club?
It's a club. Well, it's a club. Yeah, you can dance. I'll see you there. But bring your rings. Maybe Beyonce will be playing. What is one thing we can do tonight, tomorrow, this weekend to live really fully, presently in this moment right now?
Yeah,
What can we do?
I'll give you three.
Three?
I'll give you three. Simple. First, find your feet. Practice your presence.
Yes.
Practice your presence. Practice being in this divine mystery of life. The fact that you have feet, that you can feel something, that is wild when science tells us that none of this thing is solid. Science tells me that this is just atoms spinning around each other, yet I perceive it as solid. Wild. So first, find your feet. Start with that one. Real easy work. Another thing that you can do is to look in the mirror. This is a little harder. Look in the mirror, looking in the eyeballs, in your own eyeballs. Look deep behind, just like the structure of the eye. Don't criticize your appearance or anything like that. Don't think about your gray hairs and the wrinkles around your eye. Rather, look in the eyes, deep in there, into the thing that's looking back at you. And repeat to yourself, I'm going to die.
I'm going to die.
Yeah. A little harder.
Harder? I'm going to die.
Yeah, 3 times. To yourself in the mirror.
I'm going to die.
Yeah. Okay. And then have a conversation with the people in your life about your life, about the things that you still wish for, hope for, want. Talk to them about what you've made of your life so far. Talk to them about their end. Talk to them about the end that they'll want to make. Talk to them about your wishes for the end of life. Talk about your desires for care, for life support, for your funeral. Just talk to them about your life and talk to them about death. Yeah.
Will do.
Yay. A+.
We're going to close. Yes. We're going to close just reading a little bit. I wanted to read 2 parts, but there were so many questions that I wanted to stay with it. So I know. Yeah, well, you choose. I think it's the second. Okay. But this epilogue is stunning, and this book is beautiful, available in paperback. Hit it, friend.
Okay, great. Here we go. And Elijah, if you're here a little bit, we were looking for this bit earlier, and I think this is it. Elijah is one of the scholarship recipients. Okay. While our lives and choices may seem insignificant in the grand scheme of things, they are not. With the dizzying serendipity that must occur for us to be born, the fact that we live is a miracle. If the best that we do on any given day is roll over in bed, so long as we make peace with our choices from the perspective of our deaths, there is cause to celebrate. The daily practice of being with mortality gives us the glorious opportunity to redefine our priorities, refine our values, and bring wonder and mystery to this wild ride of our unique lives. This allows us to reach the end, downright raggedy, satiated, and drunk on life, but ready to go home because the party's over and our feet hurt. This is what I wish for all of us, a life that feels like the miracle it is, and a death that serves as a period on a satisfying sentence. Because we live, we get to die. That is a gift. Thanks, Dana.
I hope this whole room watched her smile when she said this wild ride. Your whole face lit up.
Oh, yeah?
And if you watch her TED Talk, she says, just like I agree with, if you bury me wearing a bra, I'm coming back to haunt everybody.
Everyone. You too.
You're the best. Okay. Oh, let's take a breath. Let's all take a breath. We're going to turn this party of life and death. Hi, balcony.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, everybody. To Q&A, a beautiful Q&A. If you're in the balcony, we love you. We want you to come down and ask your questions down here. If the lights can come up a little bit. We're going to have microphones out. We got Kendall in his house who's going to help us. Yes, hey, babe. So if you have questions, come down, line up, and this magnificent being is going to, get photos. That's good. Yeah, get photos, tag us. And there we go.
Thanks.
You ready?
Yes, I'm ready, Dana.
Oh, there has to be.
No questions?
I have like 18 more. If we need any.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm a hospice nurse and a doula at heart, and I see how people truly do die as they live. And I wondered if you could talk about a death that you've witnessed that was joyful, or the potential of death to be joyful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that question, and thank you for your work. We really appreciate it. You're rad. Yes, thank you. Yes, there's a client I wrote about who was young. She was in her mid to late 20s at the time that she was dying. And so I think the expectation was that she'd be like having a really hard time with it, I was. And I think that really showed my judgment and my internalized ageism around dying, that somebody young shouldn't be dying so young. Her death was premature, and I'm using air quotes around that because death is absolutely sovereign in its timing. Death comes and it's the time. It's not too early. It is the time that the death is occurring. Her name was Summer, and she was ready. She'd been sick for a while. Her body wasn't working the way that she'd wanted it to, the way that we think that it's supposed to. And she approached it with an ease that was remarkable to witness. It was time for her. It was time. She laid out very clearly what she wanted her plans to be. She died at home. She had her friends come over. They all picked a hat because she collected hats. So they picked a hat, put one of the hats on their head. Everybody took shots. They cried, but they laughed a lot. They danced. They told stories about her. I think everybody left a little bit softer and a little bit more open to the possibility that even though the death doesn't often look like the circumstances that we wish that they did, that it can still be a graceful end. Yeah, thank you.
Hi, I'm Diane Lundeen, and I love your writing.
Thank you, Diane.
And I wish I had read you a couple of months ago when I lost my mother-in-law, who was like my second mother. And when I watched her pass, well, just the whole lead up to all of that was very frustrating. And I got angry too at the system, just the things that you have to jump through to, Medicare, Medicaid, all the applications, all, crazy stuff that you shouldn't have to be dealing with. So I was angry, and I can relate to that. But that's not my question. First off, I loved your comment about lipstick. Lipstick's great, and just somebody who appreciates it is just a joy to see.
Thank you.
Secondly, well, the question is, you talked about in your book how you traveled a lot, your wanderlust and everything, and you're just a tapestry of everywhere you've been. And I was an Air Force brat, so I can really relate to that. But my question is, have you gotten to the point where you really want to identify with place and be somewhere and establish those roots?
Yes. Thank you so much for that question, Diane. Yes, I have. My partner and I were actually just having this conversation, maybe I think it was yesterday or the day before, about home. And I grew up traveling, as I shared today, and I certainly share a lot in my book. And I did not ever really identify with the idea of home. It was where I'd rested my head for the night, or, where I had a few of my things. And for the longest time, I called Los Angeles the place where I kept my things as opposed to my home. I've lived there for 20 years, but I'm gone all the time. And honestly, falling in love and building relationship has supported me in identifying where home is. Home is now with my partner. Home is where we floss our teeth and in the mirror together and joke and sing silly songs together. And that's where I'm finding home now. Yeah, that's my truth.
Yeah.
I have a couple questions, if that's okay.
Sure, how many? 18?
3.
Let's do
quick.
2.
I'll
Let's
be
do
quick.
2.
2?
I'll be
Okay.
quick.
Have you ever failed to help someone else with their death anxiety before they went?
Have I failed to?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not my job to help people get over their fear of death, at all. I can't do that. What I can do is offer some things to think about, but ultimately what you choose to do with it is what you choose to do with it. Rather, it's my job to be with somebody as they are experiencing their death anxiety. So yeah.
Okay. Then my other question is, do you have anything to say to someone experiencing a bout of death anxiety?
What do I say to somebody?
Yeah.
Well, it'd be a long conversation.
Okay, yeah.
It'd be a very long conversation. I would try to help them see where the roots of it were. Oftentimes our death anxiety is based on things that we've been told, things that we were given, as opposed to anything that comes from internal. And so I would maybe have some conversations around what we are believing about death that is causing that anxiety, what it is that we fear, and see how that can further our lives rather than keep us back from living it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you.
That's a big question, Boo.
Yes. I wonder what 3 was.
I know.
Later. Find her later. Find her later.
Find me later, please, anyway.
Beth, baby, what you got?
Hi, Dana.
Hi.
So I've lost people, and I'm a journalist, so I've written obituaries. I've interviewed people shortly after situations where death has occurred, and I've heard a lot of kind of crazy, cringe-inducing, sometimes things that people say because they're uncomfortable or don't know how to process death or what to say. I'm sure you've seen and heard some of those too. So I'm wondering, especially for people who don't have the guidance of a doula or maybe even the help of hospice care, advice you have for things to do or say to help someone close to you who might be going through the dying process, and maybe things to avoid saying or doing.
To the person who's dying, or for the people that are grieving?
I think
around?
for the person who's dying, especially.
Okay. Well, gosh, that's also a big question. I think I'd remind them to let the dying person lead the way and to meet them where they are, rather than try to maybe force them to talk about it or force them to talk about the afterlife or any regrets or anything. You just let them be where they are. But I think it's most important that we show up, because so often when somebody's dying, people just like, hey, she didn't need anything, so I didn't go. I said, tell me if you need anything, and she didn't say she needed anything. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. Let me know if you need anything. Mm-hmm. Show up, and then let them lead the way. That's what I'm coming up with off the top of my head.
No, that's great.
Is
Thank
it?
you.
Okay,
Yeah, it is. Thanks.
Show up. Let them lead let them talk about the Kardashians if they want to.
So recently I just took on a position of helping people after they die. So I go in and actually pick them up. I transfer them. And I never know what to really say to the family after I pick them up. I mean, it's immediately. Like, I'm coming in like an hour after their loved one has died. And I always feel like that kind of awkward, like, what do you say in that hour after someone has passed?
Yeah. Does it feel like an honor to be there?
It does.
Do you tell them that?
If they ask, it's been only like 6 months since I've been doing it.
Yeah.
So this actually past weekend, I did it on my own for the first time. And there were 2 women, me and my partner, which is the first time ever that they've allowed us, or we've been the first women on the transfer team, I guess.
Yay.
Yay, women.
Go women's rights.
Yay, women.
But there was also a feeling like we felt like maybe if we showed up at your house, how people would feel awkward if 2 women were taking your loved one away, if we could handle it or not.
Yeah.
And what to say. And it was just, I don't know. I'm just kind of, it's all new to me. And yeah.
It's tricky territory that you're in. First, though, I'd want to challenge your assumptions about what people might believe about you walking in there, because it sounds like those may be leading your idea about how to be. Next, I asked you initially about whether or not it felt like an honor to be there. I think that's a beautiful thing to say, because I think they'd want to know that the person who is leading their person away feels honored to be doing so, especially if it feels like a tender place.
Yeah.
That you'll take care of them. I'm sure you probably feel that as well.
And we say that too. Of course, we're going to take them into your loving care, and and we take care of them like it's our own family.
Yeah.
To be gentle and loving.
I'd also encourage you to not try to think of the things to say, because that can sometimes come across as canned and practiced.
Yeah.
If you can be present with what you're feeling at the time, and find your feet. And trust your intuition about it. If something's coming up, I would say that thing. But rather, think using this to try to figure out what to say is never going to connect.
Right.
But using this, let me use my words, using your brain to try to communicate something to say probably won't land as strong as if you're using your body and your inside being to try to connect with them.
Intuition.
Intuition.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hello, my name is Sue Papajusk, and I wanted to say thank you so much for coming to Traverse City to talk about this. It's wonderful.
Thank you. But also thank Ann and Doug.
One of my questions is, we have a movement here in Traverse City of several doulas, and there's a wind that's blowing. And we are advocates, and we're on fire to make a difference for the families in our communities that need this service, that aren't aware of it, that don't have the funds. However we can get to them, we want to help. So my question is more on the practical side. What do we do about reimbursement and getting paid, right? There's the government entities in Michigan don't allow us to get reimbursed. I know they do VA and Medicaid reimbursements in out west in many of the states. And so how did you practically work on that part of your business to be able to get paid?
Big question.
Yes.
Also, thank you. What was your name, Sue?
Sue Papajusk.
Sue. First of all, I could feel your fire when you said that you're on fire to support people. Yay!
Yeah,
it's so exciting to me. Very exciting to me. This was tough at first for me as well. What I did, though, initially, which I think was a mistake, was leave the conversations about pay till later. There were people that had the financial capacity to pay, and those are the people that I collected payment from, and then I provided other services for free when people couldn't pay. So I started, but you have to have the conversation early. It's kind of awkward to bring it up when somebody's like really close to the end, and you're like, so, about my student loans. You can't do it then. And so have it very early about what the agreement is and the understanding. That's a very practical level. On a deeper level, what you didn't ask for, but I think is useful, is to think about your relationship with money and the value of the service that you are offering. Absolutely. I had to undo a lot of ideas that this is work that, first of all, I would do for free anyway. I think it's invaluable. Of course, everybody needs it. And also, my time has some value, and I still got to pay those student loans. And so how do we make that happen? Yeah. Right. But collect payment from the people with ability to pay. Is that helpful?
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
As an actor, I'm like, can I get paid too? Right? It's always like, right? I do it for love, but where's the check? But just so beautiful. Yes, go ahead.
Hi there. Welcome to Traverse City.
Thank you.
Yeah. My name is Stephanie. I'm a nurse practitioner in geriatrics and hospice and newly trained as a doula a year ago. And question for you, opposite actually of the First Lady's question, is there a death that you have been at that was a very difficult one? There's a death that I experienced 10 years ago where the gentleman was known to not be a very good person in his life. And just no matter how much we medicated him, we couldn't get him calmed down. He was just gasping and just writhing, and people talk about the judgment day, and I think that's what he was going through before he passed. Have you had an experience like that, and how have you been able to, provide relief to the client that's suffering, trying to make their way out, and they're just obviously going through some sort of judgment period?
Yeah. That's a really big question as well. Yeah. They all are, because we're talking about death. Golly.
Keeping you on your toes.
I see. I'm in these heels, too. I wanted to say that there is a labor to dying. And what I've tried to do is remove my judgment about what they're experiencing from the equation and understand that sometimes the body has to work really, really, really hard. And sometimes that shows up as anger or death anxiety, terminal delirium, terminal agitation, which is actually a sign that dying is occurring. Sometimes those symptoms show up bigger for some people than others. And rather than add any of my judgment as to what it is that's occurring to it, I just keep rooting it in that the body and this human is doing what they need to do in order to separate from this life. It's still hard, but when I can name the thing, because sometimes like the vitriol at the end of life is terminal delirium. Sometimes the anger, sometimes the nastiness is terminal delirium. Sometimes it's deep fear. Sometimes it's their grief. And it allows me greater compassion also, because I'm like, golly, that looks hard. Mm-hmm. That is hard, and you are struggling through it. And that's the best I can offer. The same goes for explaining what's happening to the people that are around the person and they're witnessing this. I'd say a decent amount of my work now shows up where I'm educating somebody about what their person who was dying was experiencing, but decades later sometimes, an Uber driver actually told me, yeah, you see, I'm doing this work all the time, I'm telling you. And again, in those Ubers, so what do you do for work? Oh, God, here we go. But an Uber driver told me about her mother's death, and her mom was a difficult human in her life, and then her mom was very difficult in her dying as well. So we talked through terminal delirium, terminal agitation, signs and symptoms of dying, no amount of Ativan, any anti-anxiety medication. Morphine is ultimately the thing that sedated her enough to allow her to die, but no amount of the other medication was working. And being able to look at it as symptoms of her dying seemed to be supportive to her. And I suggest you try to put that in your pocket as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it was probably more traumatizing for me. I'm still traumatized by it.
I can feel it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Think of it, that was their labor. Some labors to be born are pretty difficult. Yeah. Yeah, my mom was at it for 36 hours. Yeah, it was not pretty.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Kendall, are there any questions from live stream? One or two? Is there anything? And then we're good? Great. You want to close us out, friend?
Yes. I would like nothing more.
Here we go.
No pressure.
Right. It's out of left field, but that's what it is. Are there any songs that speak to you in this line of work?
What a great question.
That's a great question also. There's many that I love. There is one, I'm trying to figure out whether or not to sing to you.
You should. I think, I would encourage you to if you want to.
It's not pleasant. It's not a nice experience.
We'll be the judge of that. We'll be the judge of that.
Okay. But I have to close my eyes and pretend I'm in the shower listening, singing to Beyonce. Okay. You are filled with the light of 1,000 angels, softly on your way, softly on your way. Peace, peace is in my heart, peace is in my heart, peace is in my heart. And then it continues on, but then it's joy is in my heart and love is in my heart, just as we hold the space as somebody's dying. Now, I can sit up here and talk about death all day long. I might even dance, but sing? God, that's one of my fears of death. I have to die singing on stage.
It's beautiful.
But also, lastly, I love the song As by Stevie Wonder. It is a fantastic song.
Yes.
And that really calls to me in the work overall.
Again, I am so glad you are not a lawyer, and we are so glad you came here. I want to thank all of you for being here, for being present. It's incredible. I just wanted to say that, and everybody on the live stream, thank you for this beautiful book that is now in paperback called Briefly, Perfectly Human. You guys, this book is funny and moving, and we just scratched the surface. So thanks to the National Writers Series, the City Opera House, and what we're doing here is we're raising money too for raising writers. So please keep supporting the programs that National Writers Series does. Join the newsletter, follow us on social media. And I just wanted to say that you also write in the book, you say you want to remember these 3 major spiritual questions. Everybody does at the end of their life. Who did I love? How did I love? Was I loved?
Yeah.
So nice to meet you, friend.
Wonderful meeting you, Dana. Thank
Have
you
a good
all.
night.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this special presentation from the National Writers Series. Coming up Wednesday, May 14th at 7 p.m., don't miss an evening with Rick Atkinson. Join the National Writers Series for an inspiring conversation with #1 New York Times best-selling author and Pulitzer Prize-winning author. He will talk about his latest book, The Fate of Day, which is a riveting narrative exploring the pivotal middle years of the American Revolutionary War. This publication marks the 250th anniversary of the beginning of the Revolution. Tickets are available now. Go to nationalwriterseries.org.